coming more closer to home. There are children across our country without birth certificates, and this includes children who are orphaned and abandoned. The Children's Institute and the Legal Resources Centre has secured an earlier temporary court victory to protect them from repeatedly losing their child support grants. But that moratorium, the time on that moratorium is starting to run out. Sassa initially had terminated those grants at the end of December 2020, creating hardship for their families during the second wave of the pandemic, according to research. Mbonisi Nyathi is with the UCT Children's Institute and is a legal researcher there and joins us now. Good evening and welcome, Mbonisi. What is the reality of undocumented children as we speak tonight?
Good evening, and good evening to viewers at home. So, since December 2020, the moratorium that was there, it has been in place, and it was extended from March 2022 until March 2023. So it has been subsequently been extended for another 2 years until March 2025. So as it stands, there have been no grants that have been lapsed apart the mistake that they've done in December 2020. So there's no grants that have been lapsed for failure by the clients to provide documents from Home Affairs.
What is the number of undocumented children in our country? The last official number we heard was an estimated 16,000 children.
So in terms of our analysis that we have done at the Children's Institute, there are about 500,000 children who do not have a birth certificate. So that number was in 2017. So we, due to the lockdown and also the services at Home Affairs being closed during lockdown, we expect that that number has increased now. So, but from the profile that we have so far, what we have been able to ascertain is that about 80% of these children are South African citizens, and there are many reasons that leads to them to not having ID birth certificate or their caregivers not having ID documents.
So take us into that story. You know, as I talked about in the introduction, some of the children are orphaned, some of the children are abandoned. Just give us a deeper and keener picture on why children, especially the ones that we're talking about, continue to remain undocumented. What are the obstacles?
So the obstacles that are there is late birth registration when it comes to these children. So we all know that the late birth registration is a cumbersome process that it requires additional documents once it's after 30 days. So Home Affairs will have to verify that is indeed these are South African citizens. But the challenge is that when these children are orphaned or abandoned, they are relying on court orders from social workers. We know that there is a number of limited social workers who are assisting these children. So it becomes very difficult for them, for the caregivers, firstly to secure the court orders from the social workers. And also the challenges also that are there with Home Affairs, there have been budget cuts for Home Affairs. So it has also affected how their services are being offered.
Yeah, and part of the reading around this is that even the transport cost to go to and from the offices on more than one occasion is something that also is an impediment and stands in the way. Mbonisi, talk to us about the time frames. We talk now that these child care grants are in place until this group of identified vulnerable children can be documented and they can have this security of a permanent grant in the qualifying period. But at the moment, there's this, there's this directive that they should be once, a grant is lost or ceded, you'll have 3 months then to go back and to reinstate that grant. That period, of course, extended now until beyond 2025. Is it possible that this, can be done by then? And I mean, what is the future of both the legislation and making the legislation granting them access more permanent?
So far, with the research that we have, we've been able to demonstrate to Sassa that it takes more than 3 months for a late birth registration to be finalized. So through our evidence, we presented that to Sassa, and Sassa have agreed to us. So far, what has happened is that now there is an agreement that is between Sassa, the Department of Home Affairs, and the Social Development to assist and prioritize the registration of people who are already receiving these grants using alternative documents. So we're hoping that the relevant stakeholders will use this opportunity to assist these caregivers and focus on getting their documents, and not use this opportunity to purge them and remove them, because from what we've been able to prove is that in most cases the clients are unable to get the documents for the reasons that is beyond their control. For example, in March this year in Parliament, Home Affairs presented to the Parliament Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs, and the state that they presented there, they presented that there's almost, as of June 2022, there was almost 220 backlogs of unabridged birth certificate. So here we're just speaking of the kids that already have birth certificate. But we don't know, we know cases where clients have taken almost 3 years waiting for their unabridged birth certificate before they were able to lodge for their IDs. So if there are challenges for people who already have birth certificate, imagine the ones that are yet to lodge their late birth registration. And also in that, they were unable to ascertain or give data in terms of whether how many late birth registration that they have, or whether they have a backlog or not. So as it stands, we don't know how huge the problem is when it comes to late birth registration. So from our side, I think we've been able to prove that it is beyond our clients' control for them to access this document. But it requires effort from Sassa, from Home Affairs, from DST to assist these children to get their documentation in order.
Yeah, it's certainly a messy and complex situation in Mbonisi that leaves a lot of these children vulnerable, not only in the cohort we talked about, which were the abandoned and orphaned children, but also those who might have documents but still have impediments along the way as well. A subject we can't leave alone. We'll definitely follow up on this one. Mbonisi Nyathi is a legal researcher with the UCT Children's Institute.